Good evening and welcome to the Board of Selectmen's meeting of Tuesday, I believe it is December 4th. I hope I have the right day. Mr. Calcutt, our chair, is joining us on video here this evening. I'm sorry?
It's the 5th.
It's the 5th. Well, that's a good thing. We're a day early.
We have an echo.
We'll take a second.
Does anyone have this lady on their phone or anything?
Is it the mic? Is it the mic?
Is the mic? Okay.
Is it Kevin's mic is on?
We're on a little bit of a hold here for a second. My apologies.
Here we go.
Oh, Todd.
Are we good?
Thank you, Todd.
All right.
Saves the day.
Todd saves the
We will start over. Good evening and welcome to the Norfolk Board of Selectmen's meeting of Tuesday, December 5th. My name is Jim Lehan. I'm joined by Anita Mecklenburg, and our chair, Mr. Calcutt, is on video here this evening. He's on a business meeting and is joining us via Zoom. I will open the meeting, and then once we get to the business sessions, I will turn the meeting over to our chair, Mr. Calcutt. If you would, for a moment, please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all very much. Mr. Calcutt, I will turn the meeting over to you, sir.
Thanks, Jim. Can everybody hear me okay?
A little louder would be good for those of us that are hearing impaired.
I will speak as loud as I can. Hopefully you can turn it up on your end as
Perfect.
well. So Justin, would you mind taking us through our agenda this evening before we get into our first item?
Yes. So this evening we have a public hearing regarding a dog. We'll consider appointment to the Conservation Commission. We'll consider a letter of support for the Metacomet Greenway. Agenda item number 4 we are passing over. And then we'll have some various procedural votes on license renewals for the following calendar year. We will then approve the use of Town Hill, and then we'll have an update from concerning the Norfolk Wastewater Master Plan, and then get some first quarter financial update from our Finance Director.
Thanks, Justin. That'll take us into our first item this evening, which is the dangerous dog hearing. As a couple of precursors for our agenda item, I am going to first identify that this is a nuisance or dangerous dog public hearing under GL Chapter 140, subsection 157. That written notice of this public hearing was provided to the dog owner. That is the subject of the complaint on November 20th, 2023. I will identify that materials for this meeting have been submitted. They include an incident report from ACO Cohen, an email from ACO Cohen identifying the request, and a couple of emails from Ms. Lawrence. Anyone who wishes to speak or ask questions will have that opportunity. Questions should be directed to any witness through the chair, and speakers should stick to the relevant issues and please be respectful. To those wishing to present documents or written evidence during the public hearing, until the Select Board closes the public hearing for the purpose of conducting deliberations, they may do so by indicating such intent to the chair, at which point the submission may be transmitted either by screen sharing, email to the town administrator's email address, etc. As our next order of business, we will be swearing in all witnesses who wish to speak collectively. So I will say, do you swear that the testimony you are about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? All witnesses who are to be sworn in collectively at the same time, just say that I do.
I do.
I do. I will trust that my eyes in the room did identify that everybody who was wishing to provide testimony did say I do.
They did, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. So we will start by inviting the complainant to testify as our first witness, and then the order of the subsequent witnesses will be our ACO Cohen and then the Lawrences. After all the testimony is received, the Select Board, the chair, and being me, will, that seems redundant. We'll invite the complainant of the dog owner to make any closing remarks, and then thereafter the board will take a vote on whether to close the public hearing and to begin deliberations. During those deliberations, the board will vote on determinations and potential orders enumerated in GL Chapter 140, subsection 157, and those will be summarized and will be followed with a written decision. I don't think I need to go through all of the aspects of the orders, do I, Justin?
No, that's just for the board's information.
Thank you very much, sir.
Welcome.
So unless I missed anything, Justin, I think we will invite ACO Cohen first to provide the outline of the report submitted, and then we'll move on to the complainant.
I was just going to ask Mr. Calcutt, do you need a motion to open the public hearing?
You don't need
don't?
it.
Okay.
It's just a regular public hearing. It didn't have
Okay.
to be noticed. And Mr. Chair, I think we'll invite the complainant because, as we had discussed with the board, the incident report is in the record, and it will be provided in the record at the end of the meeting as well. And so the ACO will be here for the board if there's any questions from the board or any recommendations that you may want from the ACO after hearing from the complainant.
Thank you for keeping me to sequence.
So you might want the complainant, if the complainant is here.
Rachel?
Would anyone like to speak?
Yeah.
Please, come on up and take one of the comfortable chairs.
Do you want me to sit with you?
Yes.
Okay. Have a seat here.
Hillary, how are you?
I'm great. How are you guys? Good.
Welcome, Mr. Vecchio. Sorry I can't see into the audience to welcome you appropriately,
Thank
but I
you.
trust the board members did just fine.
So I submitted what happened. Do I need to, do you all have that?
Yes.
We do.
Yes.
So I just need to go through the whole thing? Okay,
Yeah. Do you mind just saying your name for the
sure.
record?
It's Rachel Del Vecchio. It might be hard for me to get through, but I'll try. So start from the beginning. So I went to walk my dog. I don't even remember the date. It was about 7:15 at night, and it was almost dark, not quite dark, and I walked down Ridge Road. Is it Ridge? Get Robin and Ridge mixed up, and towards like Chickadee, going down Ridge, and was walking my dog, and out of nowhere, and I remember I couldn't hear anything. There were no chains rattling or anything. Two dogs came charging at me. A big white one and a smaller brown dog. And I stopped in the middle. I was at this point, I guess I was in the middle of the road, and the smaller dog started attacking and biting my dog. When the white dog, I imagined it seemed to be circling us, wasn't doing anything, kind of was just watching. And I was screaming and screaming and screaming, help me, help me, help me, screaming so loud. And nobody was coming, and I remember thinking, how is no one coming? It's such a busy area, especially at that time of night, people were around, but no one was coming. And the dog kept biting him and biting him and biting him. I was screaming. I didn't know what to do. My dog Charlie, he's older. He's like 11, so he was just kind of standing there, and he was trying to get away, but I had his leash. I didn't know what to do. I was rolling around, and then he just kind of collapsed onto the road. Like we found out later, he kind of went into shock, is what they think. I'm screaming because I can't get this dog to stop biting my dog. And no one was coming. Finally, a very nice couple came out of their house, ran across the lawn, and he, what do I do? You know, what's going on? And, back up. By this point, I had the dog who was attacking my dog. I had grabbed him. Because what I did in the moment was, he wouldn't stop attacking my dog. My dog was getting bit. So I thought to myself, I'm going to have to grab him to stop him. And just to preface, I'm very afraid of dogs, so I remember thinking to myself, okay, I'm gonna get bit and it's gonna hurt, but there's no other, I have to grab him, I have to get him to stop. So I put my arm out, just bracing myself to get bit, and I was surprisingly, he didn't bite me. He just wanted my dog. So at that point I realized, okay, so he doesn't want to hurt me, he just wants Charlie. Kept at him, but I was able to now kind of separate them. So now I had my dog collapsed on the ground, and I think his name is Blue, jumping around viciously, still trying to bite my dog. At this point, the couple comes out of their home. What can we do? What do we do? What's happening? And I was hyperventilating, and I was having trouble talking, and I was trying to say, get this dog to the nice man who was trying to help me. Get him, and take him away. He's attacking my dog. I was having trouble getting the words out. His wife, it took a while for him for us to get Blue away. We finally did. I think he took Blue home. And then the wife, at that point, had called 911, called all these fire and whatever. I didn't do any of that because they were scared. I was hyperventilating. I was screaming, and I found out later that the reason why it took them so long to come out was because she thought someone was watching a horror movie in the next room. That's how badly I was screaming. So everybody comes, and Charlie was like collapsed in the street, and he wasn't getting up, and now it's dark, so I couldn't really see how badly he was hurt. So I was touching him with my hands, and I could feel that he was wet, like his whole back end was wet. And I thought, oh my God, it's blood, it's blood, it's blood. And we got the flashlights, but it turned out it was mostly saliva from the dog. I was like, okay. But he wouldn't get up. We finally got him to the side of the road, and police were there. You were so nice. She was there, and then the Lawrences came around the corner, and they felt terrible. And of course, he didn't mean for it to happen. Of course not. But I got upset because of the reaction. Was kind of like, oh, were they in a tussle or whatever? But it wasn't a tussle. Like, we got attacked. It was an attack. And long story short, my son came down. We live on Pheasant Hill, and we got Charlie home. And we got him home, we realized he had several puncture wounds. I think you have pictures, but I have color pictures on my phone. Several puncture wounds, and on his foot and on his behind. We went to the vet. He had to be shaved and cleaned. Thankfully, they weren't deep. So the vet said that the fact that his hair was so thick saved him. His very, very, very thick, coarse hair, it saved him from having really deep wells. So they were able to clean them all out, and he went on some antibiotics. My back was out for almost 3 weeks. And I just so, I had trouble sleeping for weeks. I was seeing the dogs charge me, waking up at night. I have not walked my dog alone. I walked him once successfully 2 weeks ago with pepper spray in my hand, but I have not been able to walk in the neighborhood since because I'm scared. The dogs just weren't leashed, and they were running around. 2 years ago, it happened again before this. The same dog attacked Charlie, who was leashed. He had a hole on his back. So it happened before. That time my husband was walking him. I wasn't there. Our dog is 11 years old, and he's part of our family, and we love him so much. And we almost lost him 3 months ago. So this just shouldn't have happened. And all we want is to feel safe walking him. And I don't know if I'm missing anything, but it was a scene. I had a shoe in the woods. My phone was in the street. It was something. Yeah. And I don't know. Is that everything?
Yeah, no, that's it.
Yeah.
I mean, we had, 2 years ago, June of 21, I was on leash with Charlie, and they were on leash with Blue. Her husband was there, and somehow Blue slipped his collar. I don't know how he did it, but, obviously it wasn't they weren't being negligent. He just got out somehow, and he immediately attacked Charlie. But I had a better success of fending him off while the husband wrangled him and got him under control. He still had bites that time, but it wasn't as serious. So it's just an issue with the same dog. And in this case, you were, I know where you were. You were 250, 300 feet away from their home when they just came running around the corner.
I wasn't in front of their
unleashed.
home. I wasn't even in sight. They just came running around the corner.
Yeah.
So they must have sensed, that maybe a dog was there. And thankfully, our neighbor, it's weird because our neighbor across the street, who has 2 very young kids and a dog, had passed me while I was going down before the incident, had passed me. And I keep thinking to myself, my God, thankfully it wasn't them, because they had passed before me. And again, it seems like Blue wants other dogs, not people. And I tested that out by when I grabbed him. But I'm just really worried about him getting out again.
Yeah.
And it's a busy neighborhood, a lot of dogs, a lot of families with dogs, multiple dogs, people are walking, and I don't want anyone's dog to get hurt.
Yeah, and you know what? We don't cause problems by nature. We just minimize, and I know the Lawrences are good people. It's just a fact. So that's not an issue. It's just I'd be shocked if there wasn't. I don't know if there wasn't other complaints against the same dog. People who we run around. Because I walk a lot. I talk to people. The dogs are known in the neighborhood. So it's obviously an issue. So we just wanted to come kind of present the facts and just see what the recommendations would be. That's all. Nothing harsher or less than it should be. Just what can we do to make things a little safer? That's all.
The other thing too is, I don't know if you wanted to. Charlie actually wouldn't. Just recently started taking a left on Ridge. He just for weeks wouldn't even take that turn.
Yeah, he's only gone once since.
So
he
he
knows.
was really
Yeah.
traumatized. Like the veterinarian said, seemed like he was in shock that night. He wouldn't move, but it was just, it's been a very upsetting thing for our family, especially me. It was just, I'm the last person for that. I'm afraid of dogs. I'm a dog lover, but I'm afraid of dogs. My father's a veterinarian. I was brought up to be cautious, so when those dogs came running at me, something I can't not unsee. And then the fact that, poor Charlie got hurt. And his back was out, too, for a bit. I think that's why he went limp, too, because his back was hurting probably during the attack. I think that's right.
Thank you. I'm so sorry that happened. So sorry.
Sorry, it's hard for me to
Thank you, Ms.
Thank you
Delvecchio.
for, I can tell
I'm
that
sorry,
you-
sir. Could you
I'm
please
sorry.
identify yourself just for the record as well?
I'm Chris Delvecchio, her husband.
Appreciate it. Thank you. At this point, I would ask if any of the board members have any questions for the Delvecchios.
Just a comment, I can tell that you had courage to come up here. And I can tell, I'm a dog lover too, and know it's hard. So I want to thank you for having the courage to come up.
I just, like I said, I don't.
can tell it's hard.
Thank you. No, I don't like conflict, and I don't
Yeah.
want. And like Lawrences are great people. It's just I don't. I think we talked about that. I don't like conflict, but I just want it. I want it to be safe for my dog, and for other dogs in the neighborhood.
Absolutely. I appreciate you coming forward, and I appreciate your bravery, and I'm very, very sorry that this has happened to you.
Thank you.
And we'll take it from here.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
So do we leave?
You're
I
welcome to
just have
stay.
a couple of questions, if that's quite all right.
Mr. Calcutt has questions.
Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry, I don't want to prolong this any more than I have to, but I just had a couple of clarifying questions, if that's quite all right.
Sure.
So you had mentioned that there were 2 dogs loose and both dogs charged. Was Blue the only dog that attacked?
Yes.
Or, I'm sorry?
Yes, sorry, they both came running at me. But Blue was the only one that was attacking Charlie. The other
Got
dog
it.
was sort of circling.
And that was the same with both incidents. The white dog did not attack. Blue attacked. Blue is like a brown mix, I would say. The white dog was with him but did not attack.
So you're referencing when you say both times the previous attack in June of 21?
Yeah. Correct.
Got it. Okay. Thank you. And you had mentioned that as a result of the attack, there were several puncture wounds. In the report, I thought I saw one on the paw and one on the rear. Were there additional ones that weren't included in the report?
There's, I believe, 3 photos.
3.
There's 3.
And there was an
Three.
extra one on his back that the veterinarian missed, but that was,
There were 3 on the report.
they're probably, right, yeah.
On the rear. Fantastic. Thank you so much. I just want to reconcile against the report that we had received previously. That's all the questions I have. And once again, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now that we're back in sequence at this time, I think that we would invite ACO Cohen to provide any perspective or answer any questions from the board. Oh, she's already there.
I've never seen Kevin this big in front of me before.
He's big anyway.
I know, it's a big deal. I guess if you guys want just a timeline of the incidences, excuse me, I'm happy to give that. We don't need to read the reports, but this has been an established pattern. Twice for the Del Vecchios. There was another incident where I was not the ACO that responded, that someone was walking their puppy and Blue pinned that puppy down onto the pavement. And we do have another party in the audience tonight who I had thought had moved away. She's actually still in Norfolk. And her dog was also attacked by this dog previously, back on 11/2 of 2019. So it is an established pattern for this particular dog, and it's unfortunate that this is what's happening. I do believe that when they're both loose together, they feed off of each other, as far as, there's courage when you're tag teaming, a subject such as Charlie, or as the Zagami dog, etc. So I believe that that's the gist of the problem is the restraint and keeping the dog in a healthy environment where he's not overstimulated visually, even on his own property. And I have heard from Blue's owner that he also, Blue was attacked at a previous date while being walked. So there's lots of factors here, and I think that addressing the best way to keep Blue in a healthy environment and being able to keep other animals and pedestrians, and my concern is, say a child is walking their family dog in that area. That to me is a very scary thought. So.
Thank you, Hillary. I'll open it to the board first to ask any questions, and I'll reserve my questions for once they're done.
May I ask, I apologize for not knowing the answer, but are there leash laws in Norfolk? Like, are we required to have our dogs either under voice control or on a leash, or is that not?
Yes, so in Norfolk, you have to either have your dog leashed, or it has to be under verbal command with you present, and you must be holding a leash on your person, so that if something were to go wrong, you are able to restrain and control your animal.
Thank you.
Hillary, I've got a couple of questions. You all set?
Yes.
There's no history of this dog attacking any people.
Not to my knowledge.
Okay. Ironically, I have fairly close to live fairly close to Ridge Road and had my dog attacked when I was walking, not by Blue, I want to add, by another dog. Must be something about Ridge Road. I know that I'm a dog lover, so I'm going to ask questions that you probably know I'm going to ask, and I know what you're going to answer. But dogs, there are dogs that do react to other dogs.
Correct.
I've had dogs like that, especially rescue dogs, where you don't know what their background is. Starting by saying that it's not acceptable to have a dog free that attacks other dogs. I think you can't have that. It does happen. Dogs can slip collars. I've had that happen to me. I've had it happen against me, where a dog slipped a collar and attacked my dog. And I'm not excusing any of that. But, I mean, to me, I'm not quite sure where I'm going with this. Let me stop and ask your recommendation. Before I fumble more words on this, tell me what your recommendations are. Or actually, Kevin may have some questions first. My apologies.
Yeah. Let me formulate that in my head if Kevin has any questions, or Anita.
So Hillary, my first question, unfortunately, we've had, I think, 4 or 5 of these dangerous dog hearings in my tenure on the board, and we've had events as vicious as to where a dog was very critically injured, where people were bitten. Can you just give me your personal assessment as to the intent of Blue and how serious of an attack this was? Like, if nobody would have stepped in, do you fear for the attack dog's life?
After speaking with Charlie's owner and the other witnesses that did come out of the house, the only reason that this attack ceased was because of human intervention. So I could hypothesize what may have happened if it had kept going, but I can't determine that with any sense of accuracy. The fact that there are multiple different bites shows that Blue took a bite, retreated, retracted, and then bit again. So to me, that is problematic. The behavior pattern is problematic. And whether he's trying to protect his turf, which is, he wasn't on his turf, but dogs definitely think a little differently. If they have liberty often enough, they try to claim a neighborhood. Whatever the trigger was that started it and perpetuated the actual incident, it was not ceasing on its own without the Delvecchios and the residents from Ridge Road. Now I'm confused, Ridge Road that did come out of the house. And as Delvecchio stated, she screamed for, and I believe it's in my report, approximately 5 minutes, but it was near Halloween. People were home watching scary movies, and everybody, the parties that eventually did come out of their house thought that they were listening to screaming of a movie going on in the other room in their house. So this was a prolonged period that this bite incident took place.
Thank you, Hillary. As part of your report, I saw the note about the attack on the puppy in October of 21. The Delvecchios just cited a previous attack to their dog in June of 21. Did we have any record of that, or was that reported?
So that was reported indirectly. I do have a report of it. I believe the original complaint was lodged through what was the sergeant's voicemail line at the police station, which I don't have access to, so I don't know how long that complaint sat there for. But Deputy Chief Palladini, she contacted me and said, hey, we picked up a voicemail regarding a situation where there was a dog bite. It's long past, but would you follow up with the owner? And so I did, and there is a report of, I believe, that incident in here, but there was no quarantine because the time had lapsed for a quarantine period. And there was not a lot of enforcement actions because it was basically a stale complaint at that point. I feel for both sides because even Blue's owner has reached out to me looking for help for the aggression triggers, as you can see in my packet. So this is a problem that needs to be physically controlled and, in a way that Blue can still have a good quality of life.
Thanks, Hillary. And I think that segues perfectly into my last question, also to Jim's inquiry as to your recommendation for the path forward based on your experience.
So my recommendation would be for Blue, because there's obviously a trigger towards dogs, is that we remove the stimulus of him being impacted every time a pedestrian goes by with a dog. I would recommend that we put in or order a fencing situation that is for the backyard, and that it's a physical fence, that it is dig-proof and jump-proof. And that, I would love to see that the Lawrences invest in some behavior modification to establish what the triggers are. It would be helpful for them to get a better glimpse into their dog's inner workings as to what's going to trigger him, whether it's fear, anxiety, or territorial aggression behavior, or where the situation is stemming from. That would be wonderful. And I would, I think strongly, just for the protection of the Lawrences, I would suggest a liability policy that would cover Blue. And also, on a public way, if Blue is being walked, I would recommend that he is leashed and muzzled. And if there needs to be clarification on a muzzle, it would not be. It would be a Baskerville muzzle, which allows for panting, drinking, eating, but it does, it's not going to be restrictive of any of his needs to intake of oxygen.
Very good. Thank you, Hillary. Does anybody on the board have any further questions for Hillary?
Hillary.
No. We have a hand in the back, Kevin.
The attack on my dog.
Can you come forward, ma'am, and give your name, please?
It's Pam Zagami. The attack on my dog was not in the neighborhood. That's why I wanted to bring that out, because they were talking about maybe territorial. It's his neighborhood, but I was not in his neighborhood. I was walking the woods behind the junior high. And I've had a number of dogs. I used to raise elephants. Animals have been my thing, so I know things can go wrong. But we were walking. I have a Vizsla and a Labrador, just walking. For some reason, I caught something, because if you've ever walked back there, you have a major path that goes up to the soccer fields and everything. But there are also paths off to the left. Saw something move, but wasn't sure what it was. It was like a bullet flying through and just bam, right into my Vizsla. And I'm bringing that forward because that wasn't his neighborhood. I don't know what triggered that. I have 2 retired females. They're just walking along in the woods, and this guy came from nowhere. And as you had stated, he just keeps attacking. I'm saying to the woman, get your dog off my dog. She just stood there and looked. I'm like, are you kidding? And then the blonde.
For 1 second, excuse me. I greatly appreciate you providing clarification to the incident report that we were reviewing as part of ACO Cohen's contribution to the order. However, The sequence by which we're following tonight would involve the Lawrences coming up next, and then I'll be more than happy to open it up for any further testimony or anybody else who wants to speak. But I want to make sure we stay true to the sequence that I had highlighted at the onset of the meeting.
Okay. The blonde dog, just to add, the blonde dog did the same thing. So as you had said, circled the whole time the attack was happening. And
Thank you so much for the clarification, and I promise that we'll get to a full testimony that you can provide as soon as we finish up with the Lawrences.
And just to add, I did find the report from Ms. Zagami, and it does corroborate what she is claiming.
Thank you so much, Hillary. All right, at this time, we will invite the Lawrences up for their testimony. Good evening and welcome. If you'd be so kind as just to identify yourself before you get started.
Sure. My name is Jill Lawrence of Norfolk, and my husband would have liked to be here, but he has a work conflict, and we kind of got a little bit of short notice about 4 days ago for the hearing was tonight, so he is not here, and I'm sorry.
My name is Heidi Lawrence, and I am the daughter of Jill Lawrence.
I've lived in this community for 23 years and would never want a person or an animal to get hurt on my watch. I take full accountability for the incident on October 9th, and I'm deeply apologetic that it happened and that Charlie was hurt. I've owned 7 rescue pets over the years, and this one has proven to be very challenging. Our rescue dog, Blue, has not shown an ounce of human reactivity or human aggressiveness in the almost 5 years that we have had him. He trusts humans entirely, despite his past trauma. He's a welcoming, friendly, and gentle with any and all people he meets, and he lives at our house with harmoniously with our 2 cats and our White Pyrenees dog. Prior to the incident on October 9th, we had just come back from a typical leash walk, and we were still in the process of switching the dogs over to their remote fence collars. It was an honest mistake that the dogs were let outside before the collars got fastened, or the electric fence collars got fastened back on. It was a regretful oversight, and I'm not excusing at anything I say tonight. I'm not excusing any dog behavior. I'm just explaining it from owning and from my perspective. As for incidents going back several years, we had a learning curve when we had our first dog at the Pyrenees in teaching her the boundaries, and sometimes Pyrenees they like to sometimes run, and she had done that, and but because she's so friendly to everyone, dogs and people, it wasn't as critical when she got out. Now, Blue has mistakenly accidentally left the yard approximately 3 or 4 times in the 5 years we've had him. So it hasn't happened where he's accidentally run out very frequently. But however, 2 of those times that he did get out, he interacted aggressively with another dog. In including the incident on October 9th with when Rachel was walking, and as well as the puppy. I did not witness anything about on October 9th because I was in the house and did not hear anything. But the one with the puppy in 2021, I was outside. and he was about to go for a walk, which seems to be a common denominator, where and then he just kind of got excited and ran forward, and then someone was, walking down the street pretty close to our house. What else? So in the interaction with Charlie Del Vecchio's dog in 2021, as they mentioned, they were both leash walking. They were on another street, meaning not mine, not Ridge Road, and they were both leash walking. And Rachel and I weren't there. It was the husband's present at the time. We did have a conversation after, and to my knowledge, I mean, again, to my knowledge, I learned that neither of the dog was injured, but I guess I was I didn't have that knowledge until tonight. Maybe I misunderstood, I don't know, but Blue did pull off of his collar, or it's actually a harness. We would always walk him with a harness. We pulled off of his harness, and he did initiate that situation. I did not witness it. But since that day, which was the summer of 2021, we immediately made the modification that one family member never walks both dogs at once, meaning that's an immediate thing we did, because there was one person walking two dogs, meaning our two dogs, and we now just do it 1v1. So that was one thing that we did then, and since then that hasn't happened again, where he's pulled off his leash. So I know that the report mentions a lot. There's quite a bit in the report about how us as owners were not caring, or not seemed to not be and have any concern, and that all of those statements in there are very concerning to me and very disappointing, and almost, I don't know, I was just surprised that the democratic process would work such that there'd be all these judgments about my behavior from people that either weren't there to see my behavior. So anyway, I did put that in my letter to the board, which I know has been put in the agenda or the minutes or whatever. To my knowledge, Blue has never, just to clarify from that, has never interacted with any neighborhood children, any negative interactions, including the ones that are mentioned in the report, and has certainly not ever present at the bus stop. That's about 75, 80 yards from our driveway. He is, and even so, he's only ever been reactive with other dogs, never a human, whether an adult or a child. So in being, I just wanted to add one more thing, which is hearing from the woman who is here tonight, Pam. I know she just talked about when we had met up near the middle school woods, where Blue had pulled, I think he had, it was several years ago, 2019, so I don't remember exactly what happened right before that, but I can tell you that I would never just stand there when my dog might be possibly about to hurt another dog, or in the process of getting close and and there seemed to be something that was going to happen between the dogs. That would never be something I would have ever done, and that just seems a little bit drastic that would be said, because that has never, I've never reacted like that. In my whole life, as a parent, a teacher, a coach, a dog owner, a cat owner, that's just hard to hear something like that. In being accountable owners for the dog incident that did occur in October, we immediately began making modifications in the management of our rescue dog, Blue. There are 4 ameliorations that we have already structured as improvements. Within about 5 days of the incident, we began Blue on an anti-anxiety medication per our veterinarian's direction, which sounds like it can be it can be very helpful in reducing fear, fear, aggression that's caused by anxiety from the PTSD, I guess, that he has from in the first year or so or two of his life. Secondly, we purchased a basket muzzle, and it is a Baskerville muzzle, and I brought it with me tonight for him to wear on public roadways. So he has been successfully wearing that, getting used to that, and he seems very comfortable in it. We shifted the electric fence radius so he would have less access to the front yard, but rather spend his outside time, which is actually not a lot of time because he's kind of becoming more of an indoor dog. He spends that outside time in the side and in the backyard. And then lastly, we researched one of those dog runs, and we didn't want to spend it's several $100s, I think, for a lower one, but a lower end one. But we wanted to have that for him, a dog run. I guess it has like a roof, or it can have the roof, and to use in the backyard where he could be tethered and away from anything that would be triggering, near the end of the driveway. The last point is, and I know that the board has read this from me, but on July 1st of just this year, so just 4 or 5 months ago, Blue was aggressively attacked. In fact, when Rachel told the story, and I have read what she said, it's so similar. However, the big difference is that we were not on a public roadway when it happened. We were on the edge of someone's property. So we were on the sidewalk, but then we had stepped a few steps off. So Blue was aggressively attacked and injured by another dog in the neighborhood. We were not on a public roadway at the time, but on the edge of their property. Blue was on a leash, walk alone with me, because I would only do the 1v1. And I stopped in to talk to my neighbor, who was outside, and I asked, "Are your dogs, inside?" And they were, because they were barking. But mistakenly, someone in the family let her dogs out of the house, and they came barreling, like really barreling at Blue. I mean, I had him on the leash. I had him very tight, actually, so he couldn't move. And they came barreling at Blue, immediately started attacking him. One of the dogs went right at him. The other one was circling, actually. So the other dog didn't touch Blue at all, just kind of circled around and barked. But I was completely knocked off my own feet on the ground. I actually ended up underneath the dogs. I lost my shoes. I sprained my knee on the way down, and it took 3 of us. It was myself, my neighbor, and one of her teenage children to separate the dogs amidst the fighting. And the only reason the attack ceased was because of human intervention. And so Blue had 2 puncture wounds, and one of them was extremely deep on his flank. And I did provide a photo, but I don't know if I need to show that. But it's a pretty big bite. A pretty deep wound from that dog. I walked him home. I did take him to the vet. I thought the vet reported, I was in the assumption that the vet reported, but I did not report it in Norfolk because I had stepped into their yard, and so I just felt that I had brought him to the vet. I knew that it was a mistake, and in the report, it says that I had stated to ACO that I didn't report because it was my fault. But actually, that's not how I feel, and that's not exactly what I said. I said I didn't report because I had stepped off the sidewalk. I was on their property. That's what I didn't feel like it was my fault. I just felt that it was a mistake that was made when my dog got hurt. The other 2 dogs were not injured, and I'm not equating the situation with the October incident. I wanted to share it because according to our local animal inspector, who I spoke to several times, that event could have increased the probability of Blue having fear aggression, or just stepped it up a notch. So I think that's the last part. So I listed out some ameliorations that, that we have done already, that we began doing the week, in October that it happened. And I know that there are also, as they deliberate, there are remedial actions that can be decided on. I have bought a Baskerville muzzle, and I can, that would be used anytime he is on a public way, on a leash walk with his harness. And I know it says on this, there's a list of, 7 different things. One of them is being humanely euthanized. But aside from that one, I know there's several other ones, and one of them is that, so I've already done the muzzle, we already have an appropriate leash, but it also says that where is the spot? That the owner of the dog provide to ACO information by which a dog may be identified throughout its lifetime, so just so that, I guess, to keep track, but not limited to photos, videos, a vet exam, or microchip, or any combination. So that's already, Blue was microchipped when I got him, and the veterinarian has that number. So that's been done, and then the other one that's listed in these ameliorations is that basically that the dog is neutered or spayed, unless the veterinarian doesn't think it's a good reason for medical conditions. But Blue that's another one, that Blue was neutered when we received him, so he is not reproductively intact. So those are 2 that are listed in the Massachusetts state law, as well as the muzzle. So I just wanted to point out that those 3, we have already met those. I know that it doesn't have to be all 7 of them, because I know one of them is being humanely euthanized. So I guess the last thing I wanted to say before anyone has questions is that I talked to Hillary in October about a physical fence. I understand that there could be an argument for that. My concern is that we abut wetlands. We have wetlands that come, almost about 30 yards, maybe less, 20 yards from our porch. We could never expand into our backyard because of that. So the issue with a physical fence in the back would be that would prevent the wildlife. It seems to me it would be a big issue with, probably 20, 30 different species that we see. So I'd just be worried about that, and I guess I would ask if there was another way that we could do it, maybe off to the side, I guess, rather than so that the wetlands are blocked by a fence. Or to, the other thing would be to do the and I think it's listed in here, I can't remember how it's worded, a dog to be confined in a securely enclosed and like a pen, or there's another one. A dog run that would have a secure roof. So it's in the law. So as an alternative, putting in that full fence just seems like I don't know if I can do that in good conscience as an environmentalist, and we might consider euthanasia if that is the only option, because I don't know how I would manage that on my property, because that seems really irresponsible. So I just wanted to put that out there. Again, I'm not excusing any dog behavior. For my dog, I'm just explaining it. I'm sorry that for what happened, especially, for scaring someone, as it did scare Rachel. And I vow to, be a responsible community member and dog owner as much as I can. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lawrence. I'll open it to the board for their questions before I follow with mine.
You want me to start?
Yeah, go ahead.
So, dog hearings are so hard because it's always a beloved I have no doubt in my mind that Blue is amazing, and so it's always a situation where we have to wrestle with two sides of a coin, and they're both beloved family members. And I'm, as Jim mentioned, I'm a dog owner myself, so I have empathy for that. And so I appreciate you coming forward, and I appreciate your comments. I just wanted to ask a couple, and I very much appreciate the Venmoing of the medical fees. I think that shows a lot on your part, and the steps that you've taken, I think, are really show an interest in being a safe neighbor for your neighbors, right? And to have that be, I think our job is to determine, look at, like, kind of then zoom out and say, is this enough, or are there other steps that we need to take? And I was curious about when Blue is out on the electric fence. So if Blue is out with the electric fence and Blue sees another dog, how does Blue respond?
So if he's outside and he sees a dog go by, he barks for, like, attention, like, look at me, and his tail is wagging when he does that. Now, I'm not an animal behaviorist, but he seems to me that he's excited and attentive, he moves around a little bit, but sometimes he just stands and watches it. He does not go towards the road. Sometimes he goes side to side, like a lot of dogs do when you go by their house, just because they're excited. If I go open the door and call him to come in, I'm not saying it happens in the first 3 seconds, but if I call him, he'll come. He comes. I mean, he does listen to me in, situations. To an extent, and he does come back in. So I have taken it in the habit of doing that, so he's not out barking. If someone goes by, I just bring him back in. And he's been spending much less time outside partly because it's winter. He's a Caribbean dog, but also he seems like he's getting a little bit older. So he's just, I don't know, he just seems a little bit more complacent, but I'm also wondering if the anti-anxiety has changed. They said it takes about 6 weeks, and it has been just about that, maybe 7-8 weeks. And they're going to increase the dose, this is how they do it in the 2 stages. So I think I'll go ahead. I have seen a difference, but, I don't know. I think I need more time.
Thank you. How old is Blue?
Well, we don't have an exact, but he is approximately 6 or 7, 6.5, I'd say.
It's hard. Mine's a rescue too, and when we got her, they're like, "Oh, she could be 1, she could be 2."
1 or 2.
You don't know exactly. Right. When you mentioned that you had gotten an appropriate leash, is that different from the harness that Blue was wearing before?
No, the harness is what we put on him because it's more safe or sturdy than just a collar, so that because you can't pull out of. I guess shouldn't say you can't, but I haven't experienced pulling out of a harness that goes around his chest and back versus just a collar on his neck. We walk the other dog with just a collar because she's a different dog. So and then we have a leash that is. We have several leashes, but I did look up one of them that we bought, or one of them we have, and it does fall into the measurement of the 10, whatever that scientific unit is, 300 pounds of tensile strength. So we have had that in process already, but not maybe back when. Maybe
that's what I'm wondering about, because he slipped his harness in that other incident. Is that this harness, or is that a different harness?
Oh, that's your question. I don't know what he was wearing that day. I don't know when we bought that new harness, but I do know that the problem is that when we always walk the dogs one-on-one now and not together, because sometimes they get excited and they just want to go greet a dog, and obviously Blue has the fear aggression, so we don't want him greeting any dogs. So that might have been the issue, is that there was one person and 2.
So then it is possible for him to get out of the harness.
I have never witnessed him getting out of this new harness. So I guess the answer to your question is he Blakely was wearing a collar that day in 2021, but I wasn't there.
Okay, no,
Yeah.
I don't
But
mean,
it's,
I'm
yeah.
not trying to
Yeah, no.
nitpick, I'm just trying to
Yes.
understand.
Yeah, no,
In terms
absolutely.
of action steps.
Yes,
So
yes.
then, Hillary listed our ACO, I apologize, listed some possible mitigation recommendations.
Right.
And it seems like you have responded about with the muzzle already. You've done above and beyond in terms of the anxiety meds. Do you have, and the fencing you've spoken about, so that has some concerns, and so that's a conversation that we can have. There were two things, one about insurance and one about behavior training for Blue. Do you want to speak to either of those?
Sure. The behavior training we have done with him, and we can certainly work on that again. I mean, start that up again. I didn't see a big change, but I mean, I don't know. Hillary, ACO could let me know how, if I should, is it maybe I have to do a full 6 months or 12 months? I mean, I think we did about 3 months. So I didn't feel like super confident that made a difference. I have noticed a difference in him recently that, again, I don't know if it's because he's it's about an age thing, but I actually wonder if it is the anxiety. Like, he definitely seems ramped down lately. As far as the insurance goes, that's up to you. I mean, the vet bill was, I think, about 150 or 250, something like that. He has never shown any human reactivity. So to take out a policy on him seems, I mean, that's not something that if fiscally I would think is what I would choose. But if that's what's ordered, that's what's ordered. I understand.
Okay, thank you. I think that's all that I have for right now.
A couple of questions. Has Blue ever gotten through the fence?
Has he ever gotten through it?
Through the electric fence?
Yes. Oh, with the collar on. No, that's a great question. So every time it's happened, it's been when he hasn't had the collar on. That's a good point.
So he's never violated
He's never
the fence?
breached it.
Okay.
No, I mean, not through, because it's more like a human error issue, which has happened.
And on the anxiety pills, unfortunately, I have a personal family experience with a dog. One of my daughters had a dog that had an aggressive attitude, a rescue dog, that had been not treated well.
Okay.
And was very aggressive to other dogs. And Hillary may know more about this than I do, but they did use that as a form of treatment.
Oh, okay.
And it did work. It did quiet down and has greatly eliminated the anxiety. Fortunately, there have been no incidents with the dog, with other dogs, but
Right.
If not constrained, there could have been.
Yes, right. So if there was an accident like that.
I guess I have one last question, but it really is for Hillary. Thank you for, this is hard on everybody. I'm with her. I hate these things because it's, how do you play Solomon between the lives of two different people with dogs that all love dogs? I mean, it's Kevin, it's your turn.
Thanks, Jim. So, Jill, I think that the board took most of the questions I had and already brought them forward. The big one I had at the end was your perspective on the orders that Hillary had recommended, which you just spoke to, so I appreciate that. Thank you. So I actually don't think I have any further questions. So unless anybody else on the board has anything else they'd like to share, we can excuse Mrs. Lawrence and Miss Lawrence.
Just one more comment that I think would be helpful while everyone is still here. Hillary, a lot of the things you recommended seem to have been undertaken to some degree.
Correct.
What level of comfort do you have with that?
In front of a microphone here.
Because I think we all agree that we don't want it to reoccur. So
Absolutely. So there have been numerous studies that dogs that have aggressive triggers can be negatively impacted with invisible fence. So if it gives a negative reinforcement if they test that fence during a situation where their anxiety is triggered. So it could actually be problematic down the line if that perfect storm seems to happen. He's in the front yard. As far as talking with Jill about this, structure for the backyard. I would love to see what it's about. I haven't had any email about, what's involved with it. I think we briefly spoke about it, but I thought that was a runner trolley, and I think those also carry, if there is a territorial problem, and he's trying to protect his turf, a dog that is tethered, that can exacerbate that even further. As far as the insurance, just for Jill's clarification, I don't think anybody is saying that, Blue's going to bite a person. However, if something takes place in a roadway and something catastrophic happens as a result due to a dog bite situation, I think that is a fail-safe for the Lawrences. Otherwise, homeowners could be utilized or jeopardized, and I don't want to see that for anybody in the town of Norfolk. I just have 2 more comments, but it has nothing to do with this section. Okay. So I'll leave it at that so we can
Thank you.
Speed right along.
I'm good.
Thank you, Hillary. And we'll be sure to get back to anything you'd like to contribute as we finish up with the public hearing.
Sure.
So once again, thank you, Mrs. Lawrence. Ms. Lawrence, at this time, we will take anyone who would like to share with the board as part of testimony. If you would like to, just please raise your hands, and I'll trust my associates in the room to let me know if we do see any hands go up there.
Is there somebody on the screen?
I do not, but let me get my glasses on.
I don't see any.
No, I don't see any, Kevin.
Seeing that there is no additional testimony to be collected, we will give an opportunity to the Devecchios if they'd like to give any closing remarks. You don't have to, but we'll give you the opportunity.
Yeah, I think the facts speak for themselves. It's taking all the emotion out of it. It is what it is.
Sir, they're going to want you to get a mic. It's not for us, it's for the folks at home.
Sure.
And for Kevin,
And for
too.
Kevin.
And for Kevin.
Yeah, thank you. So what happened, and we just want to stick to the facts. It was the second incident for us. It was traumatizing for my wife, obviously, traumatizing for my dog. We were on a public road. The dogs were uncontrolled, unleashed, and an attack ensued, which resulted in multiple bites. I truly believe if left without intervention, given my dog's compromised condition and his age, I'd put his chances at slim of getting out of it. I know the police who attended, even with intervention, seeing the shape of the dog, were concerned that he was going to be able to make it out of there. So those are the facts, and we're just looking to mitigate risk so that all the other animals in the neighborhood are safe. That's all. Very simple. So thank you, and thanks for spending the time with us tonight, and both with us and the Lawrences, and we appreciate the opportunity to kind of present the facts of the case, and your open minds as well. So and all the other contributors as well. So thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Devecchio. At this time, we'd like to offer the same opportunity to provide closing remarks to the Lawrences. You do not need to take advantage of that opportunity, but we do want to offer it.
Do you guys want to speak? I'm going to hand a microphone to you.
Yeah, no, it's okay. We were just wondering if there's anything that we didn't say, but I don't think so. Yeah, okay. All right, I'll speak for you then.
Can you just take-
Thank you.
I think I'm going to just speak for her because she's, this is her first meeting. She's taking AP Government, and this is not relevant to the decision at hand, of course, but I think it's more learning about the democratic process and about town meetings and how town government is run. And when she read the incident report, she was like, it just didn't seem like a balanced perspective, and it didn't have only facts. It had a lot of opinions and personal judgment and a lot of inaccuracies, and it just was hard to know that that's a public formal document that was not, is out there, and it's not, I'm not saying about specifically the minutes of that, but just things surrounding, and I think that's just, that was what the sort of what felt like bias, and that we didn't really were able to explain some of the things that were positive, like offering to pay for the vet bill on the spot, on the scene, out loud, but that was not mentioned. There was a lot of mentions about us being non-caring and like we couldn't be bothered, but I was standing there saying, is the dog hurt? Can I pay the vet bill? Apology notes, like things like that just didn't go in, and it's hard to see that it didn't feel like an unbiased report, and that's what I've heard from my student, my government student. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lawrence. And, I'll let ACO Cohen correct me if I'm mistaken, but the nature of these incident reports is to collect the perspective of individuals. And in some cases, that perspective could be dependent on what they just experienced. In this case, it was fairly traumatic. But the duty of the collecting officer is to just take that perspective, that testimony, that account of what happened, and to put it into the report. So I don't think that in any way, shape, or form, what's collected and what's posted as part of this report is identified to be fact or requiring somebody to give a critical eye to what's being said to be able to correct it or balance it. It's intended simply to collect a singular person's perspective of what occurred. So please don't feel like that report is intended to be reflective of what actually happened or anyone's judgment. That's not what the nature of report is intended to do. But Hillary, if I'm wrong in explaining that in any way, shape, or form, please correct me.
So in the police academy, if you don't add every stitch of information into your report, it was never said or it never happened. So any of the judgments that were, or the thoughts and feelings that were articulated to me by different parties that were involved in this incident, they are put into this report. It is not that I believe that Jill Lawrence is XYZ. I don't, as I've told Jill on the phone in several conversations, I reserve judgment. I mean, this is not, I'm not the judge and the jury in this. However, if I don't take notes when I'm talking to witnesses or have them in front of me, or if they put it in an email format, if it's not included in the report, it never happened. So it needs to be memorialized in the report. So that's why my reports are, unfortunately for you guys, incredibly long. And I spend way too much time writing reports. So it's no reflection of the Lawrences. Jill and I have had several lovely conversations about how we can find a solution to this.
Thank you, Hillary.
Oh, and to just to second back that up, as far as why the vet bills, why vet bills are not very much mentioned in here, because those are not municipal. That is a civil aspect, and that is between the two parties, whether that would be fulfilled or not fulfilled, whether payment for those vet bills transpires or not, as I've told the Del Vecchios and anybody that suffers a dog bite injury or their own personal injury from an animal, that the format to recoup that expense is through small claims court. And again, they would probably request my report for small claims court, but the town of Norfolk, as my position, doesn't themselves into the whole part of it.
Thanks, Hillary.
You had said you had 2 additional points to make.
Oh, just clarification. In Jill's testimony, she said that in my report that I had said that she was at fault. I just want to clarify that the actual sentence structure says she stated she didn't feel that she should report it, meaning her dog being attacked, because she was standing on the other party's property. So she felt she was in the wrong and had caused the incident. I don't insert my judgment as to whether she was right or she was wrong. I just wanted to clarify that. And the only other point was, I know, and it's the education component to me, everybody sees a tail wagging, and that was part of the testimony tonight. A tail wagging just means that the animal is stimulated. It doesn't mean that it's happy to see you. It may be unhappy to see you, and that's just the reactionary trigger to whatever stimulus they're feeling. And I'm sorry to get down that road, but it happens all the time when people say that the dog is happy to see you, and then somebody is bitten and the dog's wagging its tail. I've owned a dog that wags its tail before it would be aggressive. So it's always just cautionary tale. But other than that, the only thing I would love to be able to talk with Jill is she did make mention about some sort of setup for the backyard that she might be able to impose that doesn't encroach upon the vernal pool and stuff like that. So if you guys do make your determination tonight as to a declaration or a dismissal, if I could have the opportunity to speak with Jill more, and we can email back and forth, she can send me photos of what she's thinking, we might be able to work the rest of this, like the last component out. And then, I can forward that to you as a board, if that is the case that you do make a declaration.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Hillary. So with the completion of testimony being provided, I will make a motion to close the public hearing and to begin deliberations. If I can have a second on the motion from the board.
So, second.
Hearing a second, do we have any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Kevin Calcutt, aye.
Jim Lehan, aye.
Anita Mecklenburg, aye.
And that vote is unanimous, and we will be moving into deliberations. So as part of our deliberations, we'll be coming up with a determination on the designation as well as any orders to be enumerated. At this time, I will open it up to my fellow board members to begin with their perspective and thoughts on the path forward. So let's start with Anita.
Thanks, Kevin. So I started out when I was preparing for this evening kind of digging into Mass law about to kind of differentiate for myself legally what is Massachusetts considered to be a nuisance and what is Massachusetts considered to be dangerous. And it's super duper ambiguous. So thank you to the Massachusetts government for not cleaning that up for us. It's very important to me that one of the outcomes of this evening's proceedings is that everybody feels safe in their neighborhood, that people feel like they can walk in their streets with their dog. And so I think that no matter what the law does or doesn't say in that regard, I think we need to talk about that. And it sounds like it's pleasant to me that we can do that in partnership with the dog owner. So that feels really good. And so I think that without the guidance of the state, my belly is that there have been several incidents with this dog. I think it's fair to call the dog a dangerous dog, and I think that the steps that they've already taken are to the credit of the dog owner, and that we should, as a group, we can talk about insurance. I would lean on the expertise of the other board members. The fencing, I think that we can do some flexible fencing. I think the invisible fencing is not satisfactory for this dog. And then I love the idea of, I heard two different I heard kind of two different things. When I had my dog, we had a rescue dog also, and it turned out we needed more training than the dog. Like, as owners, we were making mistakes that we needed to learn. But I think I also heard Hillary talk about training that might do some unpacking of blues triggers so that we better understand blue as well. And so that doesn't seem like a bad idea in terms of blue living happily ever after, which is what we want. And so I think the leashing, I want to make sure that the harness that they provide is acceptable to our ACO. The muzzling is fantastic. And that kind of summarizes, I know I'm a little bit all over the place, but that's what I'm thinking.
Thanks, Anita. Jim?
Well, it's easy to get all over the place, but I won't repeat what Anita has said, but just 2 or 3 conclusions that, for me. One, these folks need to be safe, period. Somehow, whatever we need to do, we need to be sure. I'm
100%.
watching Mrs. DeVecchio here tonight, kind of nervous and shaking, and I really admire your courage for coming up here and going through this tonight, so thank you for doing that. But you need to feel safe on the street. The other part is that we have dog owners. There are good dog owners and there are bad dog owners, and sometimes problems with dogs are not the dogs, they're the people. That is not the case here. We have folks that want to do the right thing. So we have to find what that right thing is. So we have to find a way to mediate this so that you're comfortable in walking on the street and you get to have a family member that you can live with and be comfortable with, and all parties can be happy. So I'm going to look to Hillary to find a solution to that, because it sounds like the words are there to come to that mediation that will work for all parties. And I'd like to give that a chance to see if we can't mitigate it, work it out, be sure that these folks are safe on the street and that you get to keep your family member. Because we do have, I hear clearly from you that you want to do the right thing, and I hear clearly from you, you want to be safe. So we have to accommodate both sides of that street somehow. So you are far better positioned to do that than I am. So I would ask for your help. That would be my opinion at this point. And I hear a lot has been done already. Oh, yeah. And I just heard you say that you feel you have a working partner in bringing the final loops together to make this work.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think, I'm going to overstep for the chair, but I don't think you can talk. Sorry. Am I right about that?
You are right about that.
We miss you, Kevin.
Thank you, Anita.
I wasn't bringing to conclusion. I was waiting for your turn.
Thank you so much. So from my perspective, I'll echo many of the words that my fellow board members have already shared. Greatly appreciative of both the DelVecchios and the Lawrences. I mentioned at the onset of the hearing that we've had more than our fair share of these dog hearings in my tenure. But I can't tell you how much I appreciate both parties coming in with accountability at the forefront, with partnership and cooperation on a path forward at the forefront. I just want to make sure that we call out how much we do appreciate that as a board, and how effective that is in being able to come up with a solution that ensures the safety of everybody involved. I myself, as a owner of 3 rescue dogs, I wholeheartedly understand the mixed bag that comes along with that, and the love and what's required in the home to be able to ensure that those dogs are safe and have the proper environment to thrive. But I am also aware and understanding of what's required to ensure that that safe and loving home doesn't necessarily impede on the safety of others. 100%. To that end, I am in agreement with the designation of the dangerous dog, just because of the instances that we've seen up until this point. But much like Jim had identified, I would be willing to cede any designations on orders until Hillary has the opportunity to work with the Lawrences to identify what that middle ground solution is for their property. I know that Hillary has a number of skills. I'm not sure a zoning enforcement officer is one of them. So understanding that we would have to work with a couple of individuals to really come up with a good plan would be required. To that end, Justin, I will pose a question to you as part of our deliberation and determination vote tonight. Are we able to hold off on the cited orders until we get that feedback before providing that back in written form?
Yes, you can. Yes, the board can, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. So to that end, I would recommend and would accept a motion on a determination for the designation with the potential orders to follow.
May I just, Kevin, may I ask a question before we go to that step? I think it would be important, I'm in agreement, the partnership with Hillary and the Lawrences, I think, is fabulous, and so I'm in agreement with that. I would just want to make sure that there's something in place in the interim between right this minute and when we get that from that, in that interim period, that Blue will not be out unless he's muzzled and leashed, and until we have that resolved, I think that would be a good piece to be in place, like legally.
Fair point, Anita. And because of the Lawrences identifying that they've already taken some steps as associated to the muzzle, perhaps as part of the motion, we could include a couple of the steps that have already been identified and adhered to as part of the initial order with the others to follow. Would that be acceptable from your perspective?
Yes, I think so. I just think for the neighborhood, it's really important to say, we're working on a plan, but in the interim, Blue will be leashed and muzzled when he's out of the home until we come up with a plan in collaboration with the dog owner.
Absolutely. In that case, who is feeling up to providing us with a motion?
Just a point of clarification. The way it was just worded was leashed and muzzled while outside. Is there a run that is secured in the backyard? Did I hear you say that?
No, we have not.
You have not? Okay.
No,
All right.
because-
Not yet.
Thank you.
Not yet.
Okay.
Wanted to see your input.
So until that's resolved, I think leash and, I'm just going to talk out loud here, Kevin, but leashed and muzzled went outside until there's a consensus between the ACO and the family, and then those recommendations can come back to, we can formalize those once those have been hashed out. But in the interim, for the neighborhood, leashed and muzzled when he's outside.
I would just add one other thing. I think there need to be a time frame on this would be appropriate. I'm not sure how long it would take to work this all out. Could it be done by our next meeting in January? Which is, it's about, I know it's a terrible time of year. I understand that, but I do think there has to be some time frame in terms of coming to a resolution here. I don't think it's fair to drag this without some stop date on this, that's all. Whatever you think is, I don't have an answer to that. You're going to have to give me an answer to what might be appropriate.
I would hope that in the next 2 weeks, we would come up with a plan that's satisfactory for
Well,
the
then that would
Lawrences.
certainly comply with the January 5th or 6th date.
And, the sooner the better, just for the fact that if there's anything that needs a set post that's put into the ground, we're getting into freezing season.
Right.
So, thinking ahead, maybe over the next 2 weeks, we can start with email. I can go out to the Lawrence's property. We can walk around. We can come up with a plan and, get it back to you guys. And just, you have the final say, obviously. And, we can also try to clear whatever our thoughts are with conservation or zoning, just to make sure that, we're not coming up with this awesome plan for Blue and we can't do it.
Fair enough.
Is that okay, Jill?
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Justin, point of
Kevin, one more
clarification,
question?
do we require another formal meeting of the board to vote on the final orders, or are we able to cover that with our vote tonight?
What was the question? Another hearing, or what did you say, another meeting?
Do we require a formal meeting vote
Yeah.
to finalize
Yes.
the orders?
Yeah, you would
or are we
need
able to cover that tonight?
Yes, you would need to have another meeting so you could take a formal vote and have the formal recommendations, because it has to go into the report.
Got
So
it.
I would
Thank you.
probably structure whatever motion that you may have saying with final determination at a, following select board meeting.
That's why I was thinking a January meeting. What is it, the 5th, 6th, something like that. It's early.
so can I break it into two, Kevin? So we have one motion that is just declaring the dog a dangerous dog, and then a separate motion that has or is it all one motion?
Want me?
Yeah.
chime
It's
in?
my understanding that it's one motion.
Yeah, I would just do
Okay.
one motion.
I'm going to stumble through here. So I move that we find Blue, who is the property of Mr. John Lawrence and Ms. Jill Lawrence, to be a dangerous dog with action steps to be determined at a future date and finalized at a future select board meeting. In the interim, that when Blue is outside of the home, that Blue be leashed and muzzled until these steps are implemented. How's that?
I will second that
I think we
motion.
covered everything.
I just would like to see the
Did I
date,
hear a
the
second,
first
Jim? I'm
meeting in
sorry.
January. Just as point of clarification,
By
if that's
January
acceptable.
9th. January 9th. That's
Thank you.
very.
First meeting in January. A friendly amendment. I hope it's friendly.
Very friendly.
Okay.
Very friendly.
Do we hear a second on that motion?
You did.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
I would just like.
Hearing and seeing.
Oh, can I just add a thank you to the community for, I really appreciate how much bravery it does take to come forward with something like this, because you don't want to make trouble in the neighborhood, but it's really important, and so I'm really grateful that you came forward, and I really appreciate the Lawrence family's openness to also doing what's right for their neighborhood. That's all.
I would second that.
I third that.
I have seen
Now we're really
hearings and
getting into some
situations like this where
procedural
it is not.
dark ground right now.
Thank you all.
So let's stick to the motion and second that's on the table.
Sorry.
And hearing no further discussion, Kevin Calcutt, aye.
Jim Lehan, aye.
Anita Mecklenburg, aye.
And that is a unanimous vote once again. Thank you so much again, everybody. Like Anita had said, we really do appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Justin, if there's nothing else associated to our public hearing and outcome, we will be moving on to our public comment period. This is the period of the meeting where anybody who would like to share with the board for up to 3 minutes is able to do so, so long as it falls within the purview of the select board or the town administrator. If you are interested in sharing with the board for public comment tonight, we ask that you please raise your hand and let us know.
No one in here, Kevin.
Thank you. I'm not seeing anybody remotely either, so we'll be moving on to agenda item number 2. That is to vote to appoint Peter Kokinda to the Conservation Commission with a term expiring June 30th, 2026. Justin, any other background for us?
Well, the board has Mr. Kokinda's application in their packet. The chair of the Conservation Commission has given his recommendation for the appointment. It would be for a term expiring June 30th, 2026.
Thank you, Justin. Any questions from the board?
No.
None.
Grateful for his willingness to serve.
Indeed.
Absolutely. In that case, I would accept a motion to approve. I'm sorry, to appoint.
Second.
There was not a motion made. If we could make the motion, then second it, that would be great.
I move to appoint Peter Kokinda to the Conservation Board with a term to expire June 30th, 2026.
Second.
Thank you very much. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote. Kevin Calcutt, aye.
Jim Lehan, aye.
Anita Mecklenburg, aye.
That is unanimous. Thank you so much, Mr. Kokinda, for your willingness to serve. Our next item this evening is to vote to submit a letter of support of the Metacomet Greenway to the MPO Design Pilot Grant Program and authorize the chair to sign on behalf of the board. Justin, some background, please.
Yes. So in the board's packet, you have a draft letter to the MPA board. I just want to remind those viewing, and I know the board is aware, this is a continuation of a step that town meeting took at this past annual town meeting, where we're allocating CPC funds towards the Metacomet Greenway. So this is just the continuation of that step there, and the board would take a vote to authorize the chair to sign that letter on behalf of the board.
Thank you, Justin. Any questions from the board?
No?
No.
Justin, do we have the letter prepared this evening?
Yes. It's in the
Would
packet.
it make more sense to authorize the vice chair to sign?
Yep, you absolutely could. Well,
I just didn't
and
know if you
hold
wanted
it,
to
and
wait
actually,
until I got back into town.
before I do that, though, we do have Richard McCarthy, who's our planning director, and he's sort of been the frontline person on this. I just want to verify with Rich. Is that suitable, Rich, or do you prefer that it's the chair of the select board that signs it?
I guess when would you sign if a word is signed, Kevin?
I'll be back Thursday.
Thursday's more than enough time.
Unless Jim wants to, I don't,
Yep.
I'm not submitting it until next week anyway, so.
Because it's
Okay,
already
you
typed.
can just leave it as chair then,
Yeah.
and I'll pop in when I get back.
Yep.
So you need a motion?
Very good. In that case, we'll take a motion to approve and to authorize the chair to sign.
Shall I? I move that we submit a letter of support to the Metacomet Greenway to the MPO Design Pilot Grant Program and authorize the chair to sign on behalf of the board.
I second.
Hearing a second, any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Kevin Calcutt, aye.
Jim Lehan, aye.
Anita Mecklenburg, aye.
That is unanimous. Thank you so much. Our next item is to vote to approve awarding a contract to Advantage Drug Testing for a 3-year period from January 1st to December 31st, 2027 for the administration of a drug and alcohol testing program for municipal employees. Justin, what do we have in terms of background?
Mr. Chair, we had this on the agenda, but we did not get the contract in time, so this will be addressed at a future select board meeting.
Very good. Thank you so much. We will skip that item without an action and move on to number 5.
Yes.
Which is to vote to approve waiving the public hearing for the renewal of the Class 3 auto license for Norfolk Auto Repair. This is pretty routine. Justin, anything you'd like to add?
Nothing to add. This is a pretty routine vote that the select board has taken, for quite a bit of time, so nothing to add.
Very much. We'll
The
take
only thing
a
that I would add is that
motion
the office did not receive any concerns or complaints concerning this.
Thank you, Justin. So in that case, we will take a motion to approve.
No.
So moved.
Nope. Mr. Chair, we have a motion, particularly for these items, because these are license renewals and different things here. So we have specific motions in the agenda background for this. We need to have the board move that the board waive the Class 3 hearing for Norfolk Auto Repair.
I move to approve the waiving of the public hearing for the renewal of Class 3 auto license for Norfolk Auto Repair.
Thank you.
Second.
Hearing a second, further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, do a roll call vote. Kevin Calcutt, aye.
Jim Lehan, aye.
Anita Mecklenburg, aye.
That is unanimous. Thank you. Our next item is to vote to approve a flurry of licenses expiring at the end of the year. Justin, if you could remind us, do we also have to go through each individual license as well as part of this motion?
We don't have to go through, we go through each classification of the license, but we have structured the motions where you can sort of take them in an omnibus fashion. There will be 5 motions that the board has to take for each of the classifications, but you don't have to identify all of the businesses.
So the motion should contain the language as noted in the agenda.
Yes.
I move to,
Wait.
They will have to include the high-level designation of alcoholic beverages, common victular, entertainment, et cetera, right?
Yes. And that's how we structured the
Got
motions
it.
in the agenda background.
May I just ask a question before we move forward?
Go ahead.
I was just wondering if there are people who have had licenses in the past but who haven't applied for a like, is this just sort of the annual rolling over?
This is sort of the annual rolling overs, and sometimes we do get people who are interested, as the board knows, new licenses. This is part of our annual renewal process. So all these various businesses are doing business as they have a license and they're renewing it for the following calendar year.
Excellent. And another question, I don't recall, and so I apologize if I'm do we look at, I don't think those fees have changed in a long time, and are our fees in line with what other communities are charging for those kind of licenses?
That's a great question, and I think that's something that we're going to be talking with the board about. That's a goal of our office, is take a review of our communities that are, partner communities, and just make sure that these licenses and fees are comparable. Judith Lazardi does the main work of this in our office on behalf of the select board, and we have looked at, for example, the entertainment license. We had this discussion in a previous meeting where some of our different licenses, maybe we look at combining them and different things there. So we're looking at that and for the future.
Excellent. That's all I have, sorry.
No worries. Thank you so much. So I guess we'll play a little bit of ping pong here on making the motions for each designation if someone would like to start.
I vote to approve the following licenses expiring at the end of the year for alcoholic beverages as so stated in the agenda.
Second.
Hearing a second, roll call
Subject to
vote.
the
Kevin
review.
Calcutt, aye.
What-
I would only make one other adjustment, because some of the businesses haven't completed payment and some other requirements. So I would say subject to the receipt of all required documentation, inspections, and payment of fees.
Duly noted
Now,
and accepted in the motion.
and I'll second that.
And I assume
Having
that
a
would apply to
revised
all
motion,
We should
second.
do all of them.
categories.
Yes,
Okay.
yep.
I'm sorry, did we have to reread it, Justin?
I think the board accepted it, and
Let me redo the vote. Let me just redo the motion, so it's confusing, Kevin. Point well taken. I move to approve the following licenses expiring the end of the year for alcoholic beverages, subject to completion of all necessary paperwork and fees associated with said license.
Second.
Hearing a second on the motion, we'll do a roll call vote. Kevin Calcutt, aye.
Jim Lehan, aye.
Anita Mecklenburg, aye. Sorry, I was multitasking there.
Appreciate it, thank you.
I'll do the next one. I move that the board approve and execute all common victualler license renewals for 2024 for the businesses listed on the agenda, subject to the receipt of all required documentation, inspections, and payment of fees.
Second.
Hearing a second, roll call vote. Kevin Calcutt, aye.
Jim Lehan, aye.
Anita Mecklenburg, aye. Do you want me to keep going?
Keep going.
I move that the board approve and execute all entertainment license renewals for 2024 for the businesses listed on the agenda, subject to the receipt of all required documentation, inspection, and payment of fees.
Second.
Hearing a second, all those in favor say aye. Kevin Calcutt, aye.
Oh, sorry, Kevin. Aye. Jim Lehan, aye. That's right.
Anita Mecklenburg, aye.
That one was on me. I said all those in favor
That's
say
okay.
aye. Slipped back into in-person for a second.
You have an excuse. You're a long way away.
I'm going to keep going here. I move that the board approve and execute all Class 1, 2, and 3 auto dealer license renewals for 2024 for the businesses listed on the agenda, subject to the receipt of all required documentation, inspections, and payment of fees.
Second.
Hearing a second, roll call vote. Kevin Calcutt, aye.
Jim Lehan, aye.
Anita Mecklenburg, aye. And to wrap it up, I move that the board approve and execute the license renewal for the Norfolk Town Taxi for 2024, subject to the receipt of all required documentation, inspections, and payment of fees.
Second.
Hearing a second, one more roll call vote. Kevin Calcutt, aye.
Jim Lehan, aye.
Anita Mecklenburg, aye.
Thank you so much to both of you for taking the motion brunt of that agenda item. I promise I will make it up in future meetings.
I'm waiting for that.
You're waiting for the 2-page announcement of
That's
an
right.
opening for a public
I'm
hearing.
going to lob it right over to you.
All right, our next item this evening is to vote to approve various directional sign permits expiring at the end of the year. Justin.
Yes, this is another annual process that the select board takes. These signs they're $5 per sign. The businesses install their own signs, and DPW just goes out and inspects them. There haven't been any issues or concerns that we've heard regarding them, so it's another annual process that the board generally does.
Do you want me to keep going? Because it's written right here. I move that the board vote to renew permits for the directional signs for the following businesses: Cable Land, Dunkin' Donuts, Golf Subway, and Four Kicks Sports Complex for 2024.
Second.
A second? All those, I did it again. Roll call vote. Kevin Calcutt, aye.
Jim Lehan, aye.
Anita Mecklenburg, aye.
That mountain time is messing me up, guys. All right. Our next item this evening is to vote to approve the use of Town Hill for the Cactus and Succulent Society. Always fun to say succulent in the context of our meetings. Their annual festival and plant sale on September 14th, 2024 from 7 to 5. Justin, any additional background?
Nothing, just that it's an annual event. Public Safety has reviewed this, and they have no concerns.
Any questions from the board?
No questions whatsoever, other than maybe you could just say succulent one more time.
You got to get it in whenever you can,
Gotta
right?
get it in.
Succulent. In that
Wanna
case,
take
we'll
this
accept a
one?
motion to approve.
Sure. I move to approve the use of Town Hill for the Cactus and Succulent Society Annual Festival and Plant Sale on September 14th, 2024, from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m.
Second.
Hearing a second, roll call vote. Kevin Calcutt, aye.
Jim Lehan, aye.
Anita Mecklenburg, aye.
Everybody got to get in on the fun with that one. Perfect. All right. Moving on to our discussions item this evening. Justin, our first one is related to the Norfolk Wastewater Master Plan update.
Yes, Mr. Chair. So this evening, you're going to hear from representatives from Woodward and Curran, as well as Mr. Richard McCarthy, who's our town planner. This is associated with the Norfolk wastewater plan that was submitted in 2021. The report was submitted in 2020. So this is some follow-up and some information for the board to consider.
You're welcome. And thank you for your work on the Metacomet.
Thank you. That's very excited about that opportunity. Thank you. Good evening. I have with me on Zoom Rosemary Blackier from Woburn and Curran, and I didn't ask her ahead of time, so would it be easier if Amanda goes through the slides, or would you want to have, do you have control? You want to go through the slides yourself in terms of?
I can share my screen if that works.
Yeah, I think that might be easier.
Yeah.
That way you can go at your own pace.
Can you see?
Yes.
There. Can you see that okay?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you again for having me tonight. Again, my name is Rosemary Blackier, and I've been working with Rich since the town awarded the contract in 2019. I was previously a resident of Norfolk for a number of years, and I semi-retired from work, but I've been following a couple of projects. This happens to be one. And I'll go through an update of what we did and where we are now and our recommendations for continuing. So again, it was introductions. We have Woodard and Curran, myself, and a number of engineers have worked with Rich. We've also kept communications open with the Department of Public Works, with Blair and his staff as well. So again, the team, we've been working directly for Rich and worked with Blair and Barry. And right now, it's myself as a client manager and a technical lead, and Jennifer Miller as a project manager. So the summary of wastewater to date: the town procured the services to do a Norfolk Town Center wastewater study back in 2019. And in July, Woodard and Curran was awarded that contract. And the first phase was for us to look at the existing Meeting House Road wastewater treatment facility. What we did is we did what's called a conditional assessment. We had a number of professionals in the electrical, the engineering, go through the facility to see how it was structurally, see how much flow it was currently servicing, the town has a permit to treat up to 30,000 gallons per day. And at that time, back in 2019, 2020 timeframe, the facility was seeing about half of its permitted capacity. And that was the Walgreens, the physical therapy, Silla's, and the Meeting House Road condominiums on the left-hand side and the newer condominiums on the right-hand side. The conditional assessment showed that the facility was in good condition. There was some concern about some trains that were not being used because the flows were not maximized there. We also looked at the existing Seward parcels, and at the time it was the condos and the small commercial down in the center by the town hall. And that's where we determined that it was receiving, the facility was receiving right around 15,000 gallons per day on an average. We also looked at the reservations, and the reservations were flows that were promised to certain parcels in that area, and the parcels went down towards the parking lot for the train, the parcels that were not built on. I believe there was a Stop and Shop parcel and a few other parcels that front on Main Street where nothing has been built yet. So we looked at what the reservations were to determine how fast the Meeting House Road facility could reach its full capacity. And it still is not operating at full capacity. One of the things we looked at was, could this facility be expanded in order to take in some more flows from Main Street, Dunkin' Donuts in the areas down in that section. But what limits it is the discharge. The groundwater discharge is a field that's up in the Meeting House Road condos area right near the facility. And that is limiting that facility to its maximum flow of 30,000 gallons per day. That cannot be expanded. We also looked at a couple of parcels, the parcel where the flagpole is up in the condos, to see if that could take some additional flow, but the soils were not conducive to additional flow. So the Meeting House Road facility is operating fine. It's limited in what it's going to be able to handle. So we looked at some additional opportunities that the town could use. We completed what's called an alternatives analysis. And this is if the Meeting House Road facility could be expanded, how can that happen? That was one of the alternatives. So we looked at do nothing. In other words, just keep everybody else on Main Street in the downtown area on the septic systems. Could we expand the Meeting House Road facility? And I explained why that couldn't happen. Could the town connect to the Massachusetts Correctional Institute in Norfolk? And at that time, back in the 2020 timeframe, when we approached the state, the answer was no, because they were in the process of upgrading their facility to treat the flows that they needed for that area. And then the fourth alternative would be to complete the task to design and construct a new wastewater treatment facility and discharge system. And I can tell you at the time, the town chose 4. So do nothing was not something that the town wanted to do. Expand the Meeting House Road facility, I explained why that could not be done. Connect to MCI Norfolk, that couldn't be done at that time because they had populations at the prison at that time that was going to need the flows that they had. So we have worked doing some additional alternatives to look at where would the town site a new wastewater treatment facility, where would it site the associated groundwater discharge. We also looked at a capital cost recovery and funding plan, and we did this just very, very minimally because the town wasn't sure what it was going to do. A capital cost recovery plan would be if the town were to go forward to build a new treatment facility and discharge, and it borrowed the money, say for example through the state revolving fund, how could it cover those costs. So capital cost recovery typically is some sort of betterment plan, whether in that a betterment plan could be 100% on the potential users. There's a number of ways to do that. In a funding plan, we've worked with Rich. Rich has been very creative in securing different grants to move this project forward. We did some public outreach. I know we had a meeting. We sent some letters out to the businesses in the general area, and I have a map I'll show you at the end of this. And we had a meeting, and most of this was taken place during the beginnings of COVID, so we were limited in that we weren't having in-person meetings. I believe we had a Zoom meeting with a number of the business owners down in the Main Street, right by the train station area. So what would be the next steps? Coordinating with the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection. They are the main regulatory agency that the town would be dealing with should it move forward. And at the time, we were looking at a new wastewater treatment facility and groundwater discharge. The Mass Department of Environmental Protection is the regulatory agency that issues those permits. We had some additional hydrogeologic tasks, and the hydrogeologic work is looking at what's below the surface of the ground. And this was concentrated at the school because the school was determined to be the most advantageous location to put groundwater discharge. What would be the capital cost estimating based on a final plan, doing some additional public outreach, and also looking at some additional funding opportunities. And at the time, the funding opportunities, the main funding avenue for projects of this magnitude are the state revolving fund. But because it was COVID, a number of grant programs came up. There were congressional earmarks that came into being, so there was some very advantageous funding that came along that typically we don't see with wastewater projects. So the conceptual plan, the report that was issued in 2021, the conceptual plan was for a new wastewater treatment facility. The wastewater treatment facility was conceptually located at the fire station location. And I've asterisked this because I know since that time, the town has eliminated that opportunity there because of the new fire station that's being built. But again, this goes back to the 2021 timeframe. Locating the new wastewater discharge at the Freeman Kennedy School, and then defined areas proposed for new water servicing. We had worked with Rich to define an area in downtown based on the new zoning that was being proposed. And since that time, the town has adopted the new legislation that was approved back in, maybe it was at 2010, I think, when the Meeting House Road facility was first built. We did do some additional studies of the groundwater, the hydrogeologic tests at the Freeman Kennedy School. We surveyed the property. We did some drive points. Some drive points actually give us groundwater data. We need to determine when you discharge large amounts of, and it's very highly treated water that would be discharged. We need to determine how far down it could go into the soil before it hits any restricting layers. There's some wetlands towards the back. There's a conservation parcel. There's some wetlands. You need to determine that the water that's being discharged can go down deep enough so that it doesn't break out anywhere. And that was the additional work that we completed to look at that site. So the preliminary results of the hydrogeologic work is that there's still some additional work that needs to be done. We did the most minimally invasive testing that we could do at the site so as not to disturb the playing fields there. But if that were to be the chosen alternative for the town, there's some additional tests that would need to be done where you bring in a backhoe. It's like large percolation tests We'd have to bring the state in to determine what they would require in order to get a permit to discharge there. That site was, the preliminary work that was done has shown that it could discharge approximately 50,000 gallons per day. What we were looking at is to determine what is the maximum amount that that site, you can build a treatment facility anywhere. It doesn't matter what your soils are or your groundwater, you can build that anywhere. It's this discharge field, which is like a large septic field, where you have to have soils that are conducive to the discharge. And that site was a good site. So since 2021, we've received some additional information from the town. Like I said, the town determined that it did not want to locate a treatment facility at the fire station site. The defined areas for wastewater servicing needs update based on the legislation that was filed. The flows and loads will change accordingly. The legislation that was sent before the state had a different delineation of areas to be serviced than we had in the study. We did not have the study when we were doing our work. That came out afterwards. So that needs to be updated. Miscellaneous discussions. And we had talked with Justin and Rich when we heard that they were closing a section of MCI Norfolk. You know, to us, that means if they're going to close down this section, there may be flows that are available there. And that would be an alternative that had it been open in 2019, 2020, I think we would have vigorously gone after that. It takes the town out of the wastewater business. It's less expensive. It's about a mile, and I'm using approximate lengths down the road. The infrastructure that the town would be required to put in and maintain would be far less than having another wastewater treatment facility and groundwater discharge. But, so Norfolk was a discussion. The town sewer user policy, the Board of Health regulations for wastewater treatment facilities. The town needed design standards, financial policies. What are you going to be your capital cost recoveries? How are you going to set fees? How are you going to set connection costs? How are you going to set user rates? So these are all things that the town still needs to discuss and put together some sewer user rules and regulations that you have a definitive. For example, if now a business on Main Street came to the town and said, you know, we'd like to connect to the Meeting House Road facility, you don't have any policies on or standards as to if you were going to allow them in, you know, would they build it? What standards are they going to build it to? So these things are these are typical of any type of sewer system. So the conclusion was, we recommended to the town, we had a meeting with Rich and Justin, and we recommended to the town that you reach back out to MCI Norfolk to see if there's any potential there. We were able to get some contact information to the town, and I believe Justin had a call with somebody at MCI Norfolk, and they actually, you know, from what I was told, seemed positive that they were interested in talking to the town, which is great. They actually, I saw an email where they were saying they could potentially offer the town flows anywhere from 40,000 to 80,000 under two separate scenarios, which is phenomenal because that's a given. You know, looking at the Freeman Kennedy School, we're saying approximately 50,000. The state could come in and ask for other conditions which could limit that. It also means if you were going to build that, you know, we're tearing up the fields for a certain amount of time. I know fields are an important asset for the town. It just posed a lot of other issues that the town would have to look at. So if the MCI Norfolk plan does come to fruition. I don't know if anything other than that initial call, the communications that went back and forth has been done, but you still need to redefine your sewer district. If the town is now going to send sewer to MCI Norfolk down Main Street, it's a different set of parcels. How are you going to do that? We didn't do any evaluations, looking at survey, looking at subsurface conditions, what's underneath the roadway there. I know I lived up on Meeting House Road, and I can tell you there's a lot of rock. So I'm going to assume that there's probably rock in the street, which makes designing sewer a little different, and it makes constructing sewer a lot more expensive. But we did not look at any of that, so I can't give you, I can give you maybe ranges, but just know that connecting to MCI Norfolk is going to be far less expensive than building your own wastewater treatment facility, building a groundwater discharge, staffing it, having operation and maintenance costs. It totally takes you out of the wastewater business. And if you could negotiate 40 to 80,000 gallons per day with MCI Norfolk, you also have a future plan for the Meeting House Road facility. Should the town decide they don't want to keep that facility open, it was built in 2009, 2010, so that makes it 13, 14 years old. There's probably at 20 years, you typically have some large upgrades. And anyway, to have MCI Norfolk might give you a plan for the future. And I would say negotiate maximum, what you could get, so that you have a plan not only to service the flows you want to service down in your downtown area, but to eventually eliminate Meeting House Road, use that as a pump station to send the flow up there. So, like I said, you need to, if MCI comes to fruition, you need to you need to update the wastewater plan, because now you're looking at a different alternative. You'd need to do some survey, you'd need to do some borings, which are drilling into the roadway to determine what the subsurface conditions are. Is it rock? Is it sand? And that will give you the ability to be able to estimate costs for construction. Again, open coordination efforts with the Massachusetts DEP and to complete the supplement. This was the original district that we looked at. And these green parcels here are the Meeting House Road condos. Here's your treatment facility. The discharge area is here. It's actually a large raised bed. I lived back here in these condos. And then the newer condos came online. And these yellow parcels are the undeveloped parcels. And these are the parcels that have yet to be connected. So this was the original planning that we worked with Rich through, looking at what's currently up there, what's currently being used, what had reserved flows, which I can tell you we never heard of reserve flows, but we used the information that the town had, and then did some build-out scenarios based on I think it's B5 zoning, B1 zoning, I forget what it was called. Yep. But this was the final plan that we ended up with. And the plan, this is the Freeman Kennedy School. This was the plan for some underground tanks. Oh, excuse me, this is the fire station parcel here. So this was, the planning was in effect. I don't think it had been approved at town meeting, but this is the concept. So we were looking at bringing in a pipe here, building a treatment facility in the back with some underground tanks. And then it could discharge across the street, down and over, and here's the school. So we did testing on this field. We did some preliminary tests on the conservation parcel. We did some it's like a piezometer that we put in the wetlands just to monitor the water flow there. And this would be MCI Norfolk. You can see, here's your rotary here. It's a short distance down Main Street. I think that as the town's engineer, if this option, which was one of the original 4, had come up in 2019, this is what we would have encouraged the town to look at. Dollar-wise, because we didn't do any study here, but, and I'm going to tell you, since COVID, prices on sewer work, on pipe in the street has just gone absolutely crazy. It's so hard to estimate pipe. But probably now, I would say, with the design, with the engineering, the permitting, it's probably around $500 to $700 a linear foot. This is about a mile, so you've got 5,280 linear feet roughly. It probably is, I think you would need a pump station somewhere in this vicinity to pump here. Pump station, probably $1.5 million. It's probably around a $5 million. And I'm using really, really rough numbers because I'm just looking at distances. That would be for, 40 to 80,000 gallons per day. You just size the pipes properly. The 2021 plan to build a treatment facility at the fire station, discharge at Freeman Kennedy, the 2021 costs were about $5.6 million, and those would have to be inflated to today's dollars. That would probably come up around, I looked at this roughly, and I'm going to say $7.5 to $8 million. And that was on 22,000 gallons a day. So that was on a very limited size treatment facility. And the only reason why I even bring this up is just so you can see, to be able to negotiate an agreement with MCI Norfolk and, use a force main down Main Street to the facility is leagues cheaper than building anything in town. And that's the gist of the wastewater to date. I don't know if you want to add anything, Rich.
I'll open it up for questions first. Not to add.
I have one.
Sure.
You've done some cost projections in terms of build-out. Have you done any cost projections in terms of the funding versus return concept?
No, we have not. Again, it's been very preliminary. As far as the work that we've done, we've worked under, I believe, 2 grants and been limited as to the scope. So we've not looked at cost of return. We haven't really done much except open discussions about capital cost recovery and whatnot.
Okay. It would seem to me that ought to be a next step, at least to do some projections in terms of, one, the funding sources and what the return on that would be. In other words, what it's going to cost us to get that money. And then secondly, what it would require us to do in order to recover that and how long it would take.
Right. That was definitely on the list of next steps.
If those numbers don't match out, MCI becomes a moot point to me. There has to be some basic financial analysis first to find out whether or not it's even viable to have the discussion. That to me would be the next step. And I don't know the answer. I'm just saying that seems like a logical next step to me.
That's definitely on the list of next steps. We have it listed as capital cost recovery and funding opportunities. That's what I am interpreting you to mean, the same thing.
Yes, thank you.
I think it sounds great. I actually, as you were going through the original slides and you talked about MCI, I wrote a note here and I said, we should ask again because they're closing. And then you talked about that. So it looks really great. And thank you for the grants that you've written that to ease the pain. So thank you. That's all I have, Kevin.
Thank you, and thank you so much, Rosemary, for the presentation. I was not aware that you had moved out of Norfolk, so we're sorry to have seen you gone, but do appreciate your continued work and quasi-retirement.
Thank you.
Justin, if you could, when was the last time that we had in-person contact, or not in-person, but just person-to-person contact with somebody at MCI?
Yes. So the last time we spoke with Mr. Jeffrey Quick, who Rosemary is talking with, I spoke with him towards the end of September, and he sort of indicated at our meeting there was discussion about what Rosemary said. There was a possibility of having 40 to 80,000 gallons. And then he had mentioned that there was another community that was pursuing something similar. We got some information from him, but that's not exactly where we were at. So we're trying to identify another person at DOC who can assist us with exploring this a little bit further.
Fantastic, thank you. I don't think I have any other questions. Rich, was there anything that you wanted to add that we didn't touch on?
No, I think you summed it up well, Mr. Lehan. The cost recovery should be the next step, and then do some work in that area, and then from there, step a little bit forward, keep going forward with little steps. I mean, that's kind of how we've approached the whole project. We've tried to have done it minimally, not to spend a lot of resources on it, but also try to move the thing forward, which we have done. We did, and just for recap, and we did submit a congressional earmark request in through the Congressman's office. So there has been some discussion with them that, depending upon how things go, that earmark could shift as well, just to let you know. So there is potentially still that opportunity, although not coming up in this, fiscal federal calendar timeframe, but that they are very much interested in this project. So we still have that to look into as well. But I would say that nothing to not continue to look at it. Is that a fair assessment, to continue to explore this? I think that would be the case.
I would think so.
Okay.
Yeah, from an engineering perspective, this was termed, it's definitely feasible.
Yeah. And just for the public at large, some of the pieces of this, when we looked at the recreation fields behind Freeman Kennedy, was that worked very closely with the Park and Rec and Ann program in particular, that to be feasible also meant that there couldn't be any disruption of field play, because we know that there's a high demand for field play, but also that there would need to be potentially some replacement. So we didn't even get to that piece of this. So that's kind of an added layer that we know, which really brought us to the conclusion that that option doesn't really seem really worth. Coupled with, I will say, the last thing was from the capital standpoint. We looked at it from the two buckets of money. I've always proceeded with this project would be based on betterments, and then outside sourcing in terms of grants to make it feasible for the betterment. So if we weren't able to get outside money to have it feasible for the property owner who's going to be assessed the betterment, then it probably wasn't going to work. We've stayed away from, and the idea of the taxpayers in Norfolk as a whole would contribute to this cost. So it was a combination of grant funding or earmarks and capital in terms of, betterments. So that's the only point I wanted to add.
Mr. Chair?
Kevin, I may make?
Sure.
Kevin, I have one more question, okay?
Absolutely, go right.
You may not know the answer to this, Rich, but many, many years ago, Main Street was dug up for a gas main. When we were talking about granite or rock or anything of that nature, is there any record as to how difficult or what issues they had when they were putting in those gas mains?
There are record.
I mean, it'd be worth looking at.
Yeah,
That'll tell you
sure.
a little bit of what's underneath that road.
Yes, there are records that we can look in for that purpose.
Mr. Chair, the only thing that I wanted to add to what Rich said is I think for the board, obviously we're just giving you an update where we're at, and I think we've heard from you all that, hey, we should explore conversations with the DOC, which we are going to do, and we are going to continue to be aggressive in trying to get earmarks or grants, and there's different, programs in the state as well. But there may be a time where we're going to need the policy decision of the board to say, hey, we want to pursue it, because there are going to be some costs, as Rosemary had indicated. There are costs to this, and that's when you have to do the cost recovery and just sort of determine, hey, is this the direction we want to go into? This ties into sort of the wastewater services that we're providing. We just had, a sewer hearing too. So I think over the next year, we're going to be discussing this quite a bit. And probably need the board to give direction on it.
One more comment, Kevin, if I may.
Sounds good. Go ahead.
If there is potential with MCI, which would take some series of phone calls and some various folks to discuss, then I do think before any policy decision is made, we need to just spend whatever we need to spend to find out what the cost recovery is on this, because that to me is a driver. I mean, this may be financially out of risk, or it may be very viable. But without that data, I wouldn't even try to make a decision on that.
And then I think we'll need to get in the habit of looking at projects like these in the context of our master plan, right? In the context of where we're going with that, so.
Absolutely. But it's all good start. Rich, thank you.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Good start.
Thank you so much, Rosemary. Thank you, Rich.
Thank you. Have a nice holiday, everybody.
Thank you. You too, Rosemary.
Hey, happy holidays.
You as
Same
well.
to you, Rich.
All right, so our next item this evening is to get an FY24 first quarter financial update, Justin.
Yes, so we have our finance director, Todd Lakemark, who's fought the good fight, and he stayed here until now. Mr. Chair, so he will give the presentation on the first quarter, but I do know as part of our discussion at the Select Board Goals Workshop, there had been some discussion or indication that you might want to see this information presented in a different manner. You have the information here. I don't know if this is how you would like to see it, but this is a good opportunity for us to really talk that through as well after Todd goes through his information here. So that was the intent of that. So okay for Todd to jump right into it, Kevin?
Yep, absolutely. Sorry about that.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you for having me here. Sorry this is a little bit late, but this is the 9:30 update that I've done for you. Typically, what I've done in the past is giving you the comparative projected revenues, which breaks out the revenues this year versus last year and gives you a comparison of where we are we on track, things of that nature. And the reason why we started with the comparative revenues was back when COVID hit, we wanted to make sure that revenues were coming in, and ever since that date, we haven't had any problems, not even during that time. So again, pretty much very comparative to last year, 9/30/22 versus 9/30/23. We are on track. Everything is tracking where we kind of need to be as far as numbers. A couple of outliers I like to go over a few with. So personal property taxes, real estate taxes, those are all coming in right about the 25% mark where they need to be. Excise tax or motor revenues typically are going to be a little bit lower until we get February time frame when the excise taxes go out, and then third quarter and fourth quarter will be recouping majority of the monies there. So that's why that's a little bit lower. Meals tax, that's trending a little bit higher than anticipated. Right now we're about 25,000, which is a little bit more than the 20,000 that was potentially going to be required for that time period of the first 3 months. So that's tracking good, which means people are going out eating in the local community. So that's a good thing. The other item that licenses and permits. So permits coming from building permits, whether it's sheds, pools, additions, things of that sort. So those are tracking a little bit higher than anticipated. We're at about 37% at 180,916 for that. And the state aid's coming in on target, 25% of what we anticipated current to date. The assessments are just a little bit lower. I expect those to trend up a little bit with charter school expenses throughout the year, going a little bit higher. And then our transfers that we receive, we had about $944,000 that we're going to use ARPA funds through the county portion. We have two components there. One was about $380,000 that we got day one, which was the unrestricted amount that we could take from the county. And then the balance of $250,000, which we just got notice they approved for the MS4 stormwater portion that we were targeting to get through for that application. So that'll be coming in this next quarter. It'll be reflected on the next reports. Any questions on the revenues?
No revenue questions on my end.
No, I don't have any.
Okay. So then the next statement shows the revenues versus expenditures, and again, tracking on date. Again, going to identify with the real estate taxes, they're right at 25%. Again, the motor vehicle excise tax, lower now, because again, we're not at the February when we start to collect those in large amounts. Again, state and county money's coming in track. The assessments are about right where they need to be. Again, the ARPA monies that we received showing about 35% to date. Again, that includes miscellaneous amounts. Prison mitigation, we get December, January timeframe, so that'll be on the second or third quarter report update. But more importantly on this report, it's kind of showing you the expenditures and where we're at and where we're trending. So general government, we're right about 26% overall. Public safety is trending right around 24%. Education, why is that lower? So 11.3%, I think that has everything in it. I'm pretty sure. I'll double check that.
Yeah, because with salaries, it shouldn't be.
I'm not sure if I put everything in there, and I apologize. I'll double check that number, and if there's an update, I'll make sure to get into your hands, because that does seem a little bit lower. But the other ones pretty much line up where they need to be. The benefits and insurance, you'll see about 64% there. $3 million of that was the retirement amount that we have to make payment on July 1, which we've done to date, so that's included in that amount there. For the remainder of the year, most of that's going to be the health insurance that's coming out of that number there. And then the two debt numbers, non-exempt and exempt amounts, they're a little bit lower, and the reason why they're a little bit lower is because payments are made to date. We have payments that are scheduled typically a little bit later in the second and third quarter, which are going to really catch up with that amount there. So I'll double check on the education. My apologies for not sure why that is. It stands out right when I'm looking at it right now.
Right.
I apologize.
No, that's all right. It's probably the lateness of the hour. And
any questions?
All right, Kevin?
I think from my perspective, Todd, this encompasses everything that I would be looking for in terms of a quarterly update. I appreciate you highlighting the variances, each of the ones that I had circled you spoke to, minus obviously the education one, which you're going to get some confirmation for us. But outside of that, this completely satisfies what I was looking for during our goal-setting session. But with that, I will toss it over to the other board members for their questions and comments.
I'll leave it to you.
Okay, just a comment, and it's not a big deal, but, a lot of these payments are cyclatory. Your insurance, you pay within a certain segment of the year, you pay them early, you pay them late, what have you. Does your system allow you to be able to recap it on that basis? So in other words, you could show a payment here of 10%, but that bill may not be due until the end of the fiscal year. So is there a way to reflect the budget anticipated cost versus the anticipated results by timing? Am I making sense to you?
So what I'm reflecting here is actual payments?
I know you are. Yeah, and this is fine. This is very good information. I'm just, when you look at a number, you don't, it's not an even flow over 12 months. Some are, in theory salaries would be, but there are some expenses that fall within certain timeframes of the calendar year, fiscal year. So if there was a way you could reflect that cost, in other words, you could have a zero, but you're not anticipating paying anything until the last quarter of the year. If you could reflect that, as to when it's due versus when it's paid, that would, at least for me, that would tell me more that we're on target. Because if you don't have that knowledge, it's hard to say we're tracking correctly or not. You would know.
Sure.
But someone reading it would not. So that would just be a helpful tool to me. That's just,
Okay.
but not a requirement, because this provides the same data. It's just in a different format based on timing of payments. I hope that makes sense. I know it does to you. I know.
Mr. Chair, just so we're clear, because I think Todd is aware, and I think I'm aware as well. For example, a good example would be benefits and insurance, right? So if someone looks at that number, they see the 63%, like, oh, we're way ahead. But Todd knows, and we know that we put that payment of $3 million at the beginning of July. So maybe what we do on the report is put an asterisk there, say front-loaded payment July service, or the motor vehicle, for example, where you would see it's lower, say asterisk estimated receipts in February.
Well, the way, at least the way I traditionally have seen it, is you would have a column.
Or another column.
Yeah, well, you would have a column that reflects the timing of the expense, and then the timing of the payment. So there's an offset. So you might have a zero, but you'd have no expense anticipated in that quarter. So you'd have a zero, even though you still show it as a budget line. It'd be a separate line. So it would reflect by the quarter what the payment was due and what was made. So you'd have, oh, that's a zero, but it's supposed to be a zero.
Yeah.
Oh, you've paid 75%. Well, you're supposed to have paid 75%. It's just a way of for the layman, I think, to be able to say, look, we really are on track. What do those numbers mean? And if people don't know the timing of that, that would be, I'm just thinking of,
sure.
You and I deal with this stuff all the time, but everybody else doesn't enjoy that.
I understand. So for instance, on the revenues with ambulance receipts, we budget
Right.
475. Right now, I'm reflecting 118,750, even
Correct.
though I've already transferred the 475, just because it makes sense that we recognize a quarter for that one particular item.
Correct.
Because that's throughout the year. And you're saying something similar
If
for the
it's a
other
big
items.
deal, this isn't a earth-shattering thing, but it does, I think, help people understand the timing of the payments.
Yep, this is kind of just, again, what we've done in the past, a snapshot to identify if there was any
Good data.
issues, and it was really more or less, the big concern was, like I said, during COVID, our concern was, are people going to continue making payments? Are we on track with all the different expenses and things of that sort? So we wanted to make sure. Just as another FYI, I'm working with the Collins Center currently and have given them additional information to hopefully have a 5-year financial forecasting plan put in place and hopefully have a first draft of that towards the end of December, early January, that I can start to incorporate on an annual basis so that we can use that for helping to identify for budgeting purposes and things of that sort, revenues on a going forward basis.
Great. Thank you.
I really want to highlight that work there, Mr. Chair, and for the board. We secured a grant from the state, the Community Compact Funds for that, and I do want to thank Todd for, he's the lead with working with the Collins Center on this, and I think it's important work that we do to, have a forecast, and so we're very proud of that work.
Could I ask one more favor? Just as a separate report, could you give us an update on excluded debt, timing of what's off and what's on?
Yeah, I'll send you the schedule.
Thanks.
I think we just had that written up for the preparation of the fire station presentation, so it should be readily at hand. Thank you very much, Todd. Appreciate the update and the adjustments to the format that we highlighted previously.
No problem.
Thanks for hanging in there.
No problem. Any other questions?
All right, that brings us to, I'm sorry?
We were just recapping about the dog hearing.
Because he's late. It's a late night for him because of the dog hearing and the other agenda items, so I appreciate.
That's my neighborhood anyways. They're the next street over.
I know. Take care.
Thank you.
Thanks, Todd. Nice to see you.
All right, so that'll bring us to our general updates. Justin, what do you have for us this evening?
Yeah, I'm going to be brief for the time, but I do want to confirm for the board that our tax rate was approved by the Department of Revenue. So after we send our recap sheet and after the classification hearing, we have to send it to the Department of Revenue for approval, and they approved our tax rate on November 22nd, so that will be $15.57 as presented in that classification hearing. And so thank you to our finance team who does all the work to get that information there.
Excellent. And if I remember, it's our lowest tax rate in a long time, and that might be worth celebrating in the next newsletter.
We'll put it in the next newsletter, yeah. Tax rate.
Thank you, Justin. Is that all for tonight?
That's it for me. Thank you, sir.
Does anybody on the board have any updates for the select board updates?
Just one update, which is a great hurrah and congratulations to the King Philip Super Bowl champion football team. It was a great game if you were a KP fan, probably not if you were a Marshfield fan. But when that game started, Marshfield got the ball on kickoff and went right down and scored. And I did not see a head drop on the KP bench because I was down there with them, and they just looked down, they picked up their helmet and said, okay, it's our turn. And the end of the game, it was 42-14, game over. Great victory. Third time. So they've done very well. We're going to be celebrating them at the school committee meeting in January.
Absolutely, and Jim kind of took a little bit of my thunder. I did also want to really just emphasize how incredible of an achievement it is for the boys. They had an incredible season. I wanted to offer congratulations to the entire coaching staff, Coach Lee, Wassel, Norris, McGuire, Pritchard, and Viscus. You guys did an incredible job with them. Just an unbelievable season. And, as part of that game, one of the things that we as a select board had done was we reached out to the Marshfield Select Board to offer a bit of a friendly wager on the Super Bowl, more to bring attention to the game, the achievements of both schools, but also to the distinct need for support for our local food pantries during this holiday season. And so we did make a wager that identified that the select board of the town that was not victorious would be making a $100 donation to the other community's food pantry. I am happy to report from Town Administrator Michael Morasco and the rest of the Marshfield Select Board that they have made a donation of $100 in the name of the Norfolk Select Board to the Marshfield Food Pantry. And I do believe that after speaking with our board that we will also be making a matching $100 donation to the Norfolk Food Pantry on behalf of the Marshfield Select Board. So I did want to offer some congratulations to the Marshfield football team for their incredible season and getting to the Super Bowl as well. And then also to the Marshfield Select Board for the good sportsmanship with the wager and for helping us to bring attention to an incredible cause going into the holiday season.
We were invited to attend the game at Fenway Park, and I had the privilege of watching them play at that time, and I had no doubt they were going to win that game because it's really, really fun to watch them play.
It was ironic that when Marshfield scored, I think it's the first time in the entire season that KP had ever been behind. And when you think about that...
For a couple of minutes.
It wasn't a couple of minutes, just we hadn't had the ball yet. As soon as we got the ball, game over. It was an incredible season.
No, you're absolutely right, Jim. I mean, it really spoke to the resiliency of the team, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, they had never been playing from behind for that long. I mean, maybe during the Foxborough game, they might have been behind for a bit, but for the most part, there wasn't many close games this season.
No.
They didn't let that get them down, and they came right back, and they played their football, and they won a very well-deserved Super Bowl, that's for sure. All right. If we have no other updates for this evening, we can move on to our next agenda item, which is the approval of some warrants. Do we have a motion to approve?
Actually, Kevin, may I just jump in? We should also commend our DPW for how the town hill looks beautiful.
Gorgeous.
It looks
Absolutely
really
gorgeous.
beautiful.
Yeah.
So thank you. They do beautiful work every year, but it looks fabulous again this year. I'll do a motion. Is that okay? Well, why don't you do the warrants? I'll do the minutes.
No, go ahead.
Okay, I move that we approve the warrants as printed in the agenda.
Second.
Hearing a second, we'll do a roll call vote. Kevin Calcutt, aye.
Jim Lehan, aye.
Anita Mecklenburg, aye. I also move that we approve the minutes for the meetings from November 7th, 2023 and November 2023.
Second.
You know, Anita, there are a few perks of being chair outside of being able to highlight when we move from agenda item to agenda
I'm
item.
trying to be efficient. I'm really sorry. Here in Massachusetts, it is 9:20 something, 28, 38, 9:38. So I was moving us along, Kevin.
Well, it's dinner time about where he is now, so it's about there.
It's, 7:40 here in Phoenix, so I'm with you, I agree. And thank you for helping to get us motivated. So hearing the motion and the second, we will do a roll call vote. Kevin Calcutt, aye.
Jim Lehan, aye.
Anita Mecklenburg, aye.
And that will conclude the items from our agenda this evening. Justin, is there anything else that we need to add before adjourning?
No, there's nothing else to ask, but I do know the board always likes to let the community know when they have a change in their schedule, and I think we're going to have a select board meeting on December 19th, so that's the only thing I would add.
Very good. Anything else from the board this evening?
Nope, nothing from me. Be safe out there.
Yeah, travel safely home.
I do appreciate everybody accommodating this last-minute trip and some of the complexity associated to having one of the members be on Zoom. But I am happy with everything we were able to get done tonight and just appreciative of everybody's accommodation. Thank you all so much, and I will accept a motion to adjourn.
Go ahead.
So moved.
Second.
Hearing a second, we'll do a roll call vote. Kevin Calcutt, aye.
Jim Lehan, aye.
Anita Mecklenburg, aye.
That is unanimous. Thank you so much once again. Have a wonderful evening, everybody.
Travel safe.
Thank you, Kevin.
Bye, Kevin.